Coming at you from deep within the grid, it's the fastest hour on Portland Community Media. I'm Ansary, and this is Outside the Box, edition 337 for January 25th, 2015. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, James, for being here as well. A lot of stuff we're going to cover tonight. I've mentioned before in other shows that I may be leaving Oregon in a couple of months, maybe late February, maybe March. So in the remainder of some of these episodes, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the issues that Portland's facing at this time, social issues, political issues, cost of living issues. That's actually where we're starting our show tonight with video number 2 from Coin 6. This is titled, Are Market Rates Affordable for Portland Apartments? Go ahead and roll it.
Well, I found out that just 4 years ago, the city of Portland issued about 600 permits for new apartments and condos. In 2014, that number rose to 3,600. And the question is, who can afford to live in all these new apartments? In nearly every corner of Portland, new apartments are going up at a dizzying pace.
What's driving the number of apartments that are being built in Portland right now?
A lot of people looking for a place to live.
Wade Lang is regional manager of American Assets Trust, the developers of Hassalo on 8th. More than 600 studio through 3-bedroom apartments in the heart of the Lloyd Center. The rents haven't been set yet.
We will watch the market conditions and set our rents according to what the market dictates.
It's got to be affordable or you're not going to get people in there. Plain and simple. I know I couldn't do it.
That's not true.
At least I don't think.
The federal government defines affordable as 30% of your income. We checked, and the median income of a family of 4 in Portland is $69,400. They should be able to afford just over $1,700 in rent. That may be able to get you a 2-bedroom apartment in Portland if you get past the waiting list. And there are a lot of Portlanders who make much less than median income. So where do they live? I went to Susan Emmons of the Northwest Pilot Project, which tries to find housing for low-income seniors.
Well, all housing is affordable to someone, but if that housing costs $2,000 a month, $2,500 a month, and you're living on an average income, you're not going to be able to afford that apartment unit.
Are you going to be able to find
here's
something?
The issue.
I'm really hoping so.
There's an underreported number of Portlanders that have lost their homes in recent years that people in the local community, some of them, aren't even talking about or thinking about, unless they're, of course, being affected by it personally, or someone that they know personally, like a friend or a family member, is actually going through a foreclosure or something to that effect. I want to say this about that. It's interesting when there are people that go through personal challenges, sometimes it takes someone to actually lose something themselves to help someone out, because there are certain people in this city and in this world that are superstitious, that are afraid if they help a friend out, that friend will turn around and start sucking on them. And it's difficult. It's difficult for a lot of people in today's society to help when there are people that will also take advantage of their help. And so there's a climate of distrust, it seems, in our society across the board, whether it be distrust of men, women, the manufactured gender wars, or when we're looking at the manufactured class wars, there's a lot of distrust along those lines. People that have something may be afraid of someone that they fear may rob them or take advantage of them or stay beyond their welcome. And there's also resentment that some people are feeling, which brings us to our next video, video 3, towards those that still have something, for example, a house. So we're seeing growing tensions in Portland between the homeless on the streets and people that still have a business, still have a home, people that are driving cars through certain neighborhoods. Go ahead and roll it. Homeless, disturbing Northwest Portland neighborhood is the title.
No longer feel safe. I'm Jeff Gianola.
And I'm Ann State. We're talking about the trendy area along Northwest 23rd. Our Jennifer Hoff discovered there's been a string of violence, and we wanted to know what you can do to stay safe.
Business owners and shoppers tell me about the homeless on Northwest 21st and 23rd, urinating on buildings, on cars. One bartender even told me he got punched. So I took their concerns to Portland police to ask how they can keep safe.
Well, I didn't think he'd swing on me.
Longtime 21st Avenue Bar and Grill owner Matt Cordova tells me a homeless man punched him last year after he interrupted Cordova's phone call.
We exchanged words. I told Mom I'd call her back later, and We kind of went at it on the sidewalk and ended up having my eye closed.
He has noticed an increasingly younger, angrier, and sober homeless population in this popular part of Portland and doesn't doubt someone will be assaulted again.
I don't think that they've got much to fear.
2 blocks over, another business manager tells me its employees carry mace, while some shoppers complain about public urination. Greg Capshaw has lived here for 20 years and blames the homeless for a recent uptick in car break-ins.
I came out one morning and fell over someone that was camped out there in their sleeping bag.
He tells me people don't fix the problem, rather the homeless are pushed in and out of every neighborhood.
I'm not sure people have thought about what to do with the homeless problem. They just get mad when it infringes on their neighborhoods.
That's not something we're going to fix.
Okay,
I found out
you for
from
playing
Portland
that.
Police Sergeant Pete.
And by the way, I've been technically homeless since March of 2014 when I came back to Portland, started my show back in June or July. And I can speak from my experience. It's very difficult to find work in this town. And it can be frustrating. You can feel, when you're homeless, alienated from society because of the title. So when people see stories like that, you know, there's this citywide psychosis that if someone is homeless, that they're mentally ill, that is the causal factor of the homelessness, not that homelessness can actually trigger episodes or a mental health crisis, especially if someone doesn't have, you know, a shower to go to. I live my life very different than the average home-free person, however, and a lot of my time and focus goes towards alternative media, which is a part of my own spiritual practice, shedding light on important issues. And so my soul, in a way, is fed in a more important way than simply eating food. And there's a lot of people that are suffering in this city and in the society that are in the home-free category that have still yet to find their way to where their own personal value is not measured against how much money they have. And so there's a lot of people that are suffering in the society because of the society that we're living in. And in a way, a lot of men, a lot of women are products of the society. So I want people to understand as they see Portland get worse after I leave, because I'm planning to leave around March, April-ish. As soon as I can get the funds to get out of here, I'm gonna be leaving. I'm not gonna be parking my trailer that I made myself with a friend around different parts of Portland. After my friend loses his home, where my trailer is parked, I'm going to be trying to leave the Portland area. And by the way, at any time, if someone's hiring, just let me know. But I put that word out there before, and there's definitely no response, which is fine. My concern now is less with myself because I've determined what my plan is and very concerned about some of you Portlanders that are going to remain here. Because you're going to be dealing with some serious stuff once this next wave of California migration comes. Not only migration from California, but the East Coast. And with that will come an increase in crime. On the topic of which, they're seeing a major increase in crime in Vancouver, Washington, which has always been kind of a problem spot over the years, the downtown Vancouver area. That is video number 4. Go ahead and roll it.
Crime alert, businesses and police warning of a big increase in violence.
This is happening in downtown Vancouver. Our Jennifer Hoff tonight found out some places are even changing the way they do business. Jen.
And the persistent problem really is at 7th Avenue and Main Street, but really the entire hill behind me is lined with bars and clubs. And police, I found out, are considering a new option to protect people in this area. Just after dinner, downtown Vancouver is relatively quiet.
About 10 o'clock it'll start picking up down here.
In fact, coffee shop Brood 360 closes an hour later to avoid the recent uptick in trouble.
Anywhere on a Friday night and Saturday night, there's anywhere from 1 to 15, 20 fights down here.
Brebner tells me there was also an alleyway shooting across the street 2 weeks ago. Coin 6 alerted you to 2 more shootings, and one was right here New Year's Day.
Being down on Main Street, it's difficult.
In an email, Vancouver police spokeswoman Kim Kapp tells me there are no known gang-associated arrests related to recent activity in that area. She says
And we'll go ahead and get the next one ready, which is video number 5. Lloyd Center parking lot closed after shooting. Go ahead and roll it.
From outside the Lloyd Center Mall, where gunfire erupted in the middle of the afternoon. A storefront window was shattered. The shooter is still on the run tonight, and police say these shootings are on the rise in recent weeks. Joel Iwanaga is live in Northeast Portland with reaction to all this. Joel?
Ken, good evening to you. Imagine it now. The parking structure here at Lloyd Center packed with cars and shoppers at the time when the gunfire erupts. Now, some shoppers thought this was a bunch of fireworks, but most knew right away this was gunfire. Gang enforcement officers gathering evidence outside the Lloyd Center Mall, Barnes & Noble.
And in the next video, woman in dressing room spots smartphone camera. Not really directly related, but semi-related. It's related to crime. It's related to Portland perversion, although this did happen down in Albany, I believe.
Super creepy.
But we're seeing a rise in stories like this.
Pictures of her in the dressing room at a Target.
Yeah, this happened at the Target store in Albany, and a person of interest was actually caught on store surveillance camera. Amy Frazier has those pictures and talked to the victim in this KOIN 6 Crime Alert.
The victim tells me she wants other people to be aware that this guy is out there. It happened here while she was shopping for swimsuits.
And all this contributes to more fear of men. It's contributing to that climate of distrust.
24-year-old
And so, thank you for playing that. We don't need to hear every single detail, but we're familiar with these type of stories, and we're noticing them increase. A couple more videos, then I'm going to add some more commentary to what I'm seeing in this trend in Portland. The next video, Tabor Space changes party policy after shooting. Tabor Space, by the way, is up in the upper blocks of Hawthorne, I believe closer to 50th. That's video 7.
Was closed off for several hours as detectives try to figure out who was responsible for those gunshots. Now, it's definitely something that church leaders were not expecting, and now they plan on making policy changes when renting out parts of their church.
Doesn't matter how much you spend on your home, no neighborhood is immune from the social ills. No neighborhood. Keep dreaming, folks. No neighborhood is immune from the social ills that are very much about Portland.
One of those bullets landing a mile away, hitting the window of this 1-year-old girl.
I noticed on her face she had a little, something on it, and she was kind of moving her hands towards her face. So then I noticed, well, there's glass on her face.
And the bullet just a few feet away from where she was sleeping.
It was good that she was, low down. She wasn't, but what if she had been up in her room or something like that?
What ifs this father does not want to think
So
about.
we're seeing an increase in parents basically surprised that Portland has this dark side to it. And it's unfortunate because if you have a child, you are responsible for that child's safety to a certain degree. You can't be Superman or Supermom and prevent any negative thing or every negative thing from happening. But people that have bought the bullet, if you will, bought the lie that Portland is a super progressive town that doesn't have some of the social ills as other cities, a lot of them have another thing coming. And as this city becomes more and more populated, and as we go through the next economic recession, which isn't very far away, a lot more of those social ills, including sex trafficking, human trafficking, are going to rear their ugly head and show their teeth. Which brings us to video number 8. Sex trafficking victim, my pimp beat me. For those that don't know, Portland's in the top 3 for child sex trafficking capitals in the United States. Go ahead and roll it.
She escaped from sex trafficking. Tonight, one brave woman tells KOIN 6 how she got away from the man who was forcing her to have sex.
If I didn't make a certain amount of money, he would beat me up.
This as the city of Portland today makes a move to fight the dangerous trade. Hi, everybody. This is KOIN 6 News at 4 o'clock. I'm Jennifer
Portland,
Hoff.
however, was founded on prostitution, drug addiction, and alcoholism. So Portland really isn't doing that much to change things. This is happening because our city is a certain way as it is. Go ahead.
A recent murder suspect used to meet his victim. Her name, Ashley Benson.
So digging deeper tonight, our Amy Frazier got a first-hand account of what Portland's sex trafficking scene does to young women, Amy.
I sat down with a survivor today who was sold on the streets of Portland when she was just 15 years old. At the time, she says she had no idea of the dangers she would face.
And then he's like, if you really love me, you'll do this for me.
Shelley is speaking publicly for the first time, hoping to help other survivors of sex trafficking.
And for them to know that they don't have to do this. There's a way, there is hope for them to get out of this life.
Something she feels she needs to talk about after the death of Ashley Benson.
And why
Police
is that
say
important?
The 24-year-old
Thank
victim
you.
of
It's important for young women to know that they don't have to be sex slaves. And there's a certain amount of these young women that have been conditioned by pulp culture. And I've spoken before on the show that I feel that as human beings, both men and women have certain programming in their genes as human beings. So when you add in pop culture, when you have someone that's basically beating a woman, hypnotizing a woman, telling that girl that they are his property, a certain psychosis and hypnosis can take effect. And young women and men should be educated about this, should be educated about, especially women specifically, about how easily women can be hypnotized to be someone's slave and the need to snap out of that trance. Because a lot of these women that are engaged in this business of being forced into prostitution are doing it because they believe that they have to. And there may have been, in some cases, there's a relationship, a so-called friendship, sometimes sexual, between the pimp and the minor, because the minor is allowing it to take place, again, either because she's programmed through external means, pop culture, the music she's listening to, or there's abuse in the family, or it's just simply biology taking place where a dominator in the wilderness or the forest is dominating his prey. It's important that young people be educated about things that are happening in today's world. Otherwise, some of them are going to be sucked up into the industry. The problem is we don't have enough adults. We don't have enough adult women that are actually discussing these issues, warning their daughters about this industry. There's a lot of adult women that are in the industry that aren't doing a damn thing to help other women. And it's really, really sad. And so we need to continue to investigate human psychology and why some people allow themselves to be victims. You know, there's a reason why that catchphrase, nice guys finish last, started a very long time ago. And there's a reason why that catchphrase or that slogan has a lot of weight in today's society. There's a lot of things that people need to think about, and there's a lot of priorities that people have way screwed up in a lot of different ways. So there needs to be more focus on this issue on the local level. And any attempt that you're seeing from the Portland police to squash this issue is only coming from, and it's really sad to see, the federal government has to be the one to come in and blow the whistle and say that there's a problem. All this came about through a federal investigation into child sex trafficking on a nationwide level. And they kept finding girls from Portland, Oregon in other cities. That's how Portland ended up on the map, just so you know. It isn't because all of a sudden the mayor got concerned. It isn't because a few girls started to speak out. It isn't because, you know, of a few busts locally. It was because of federal busts. And again, I'm not a fan of the federal government, but you see how sometimes it requires the federal government, it takes the federal government to actually get involved and shine a light on a local issue. That's how corrupt we are on the local level with sex trafficking and so many other things. There's so many things that are taking place behind closed doors when it comes to the Portland Mafia or the Portland City Council. So many issues, I would say it's almost overwhelming. And so myself, after trying to fight some of these issues and rally people around the cause of shining light on these issues, and yet being homeless anyways as a result, again, that's another motivating factor for me leaving Portland in March. And when I do so, I'm going to be working really hard in my travels, wherever I'm going to be, to no longer think about this this city's troubles, the sex trafficking. I'm not really going to talk about it anymore. I want to talk about some of those things before these shows, this series is over, which could go on for a few more weeks or a few more months. And then I'm going to liberate myself at that point from being concerned about what happens to the people of Portland. Clearly, they're not concerned with my well-being, and clearly it's time for me to move on and start thinking more about global issues. Now, we're going to now move on to those larger issues that are also taking place in the world. Last week, I talked a lot about the issue in the Middle East. And we're seeing this global attack on Islam, which in many ways is there to incite radical Muslims and create this defensiveness. I mean, there's a reason why they're not only depicting the quote-unquote Prophet Muhammad in pretty profoundly disgusting ways, But there's a reason why they're lying on the mainstream media, not just Fox News. Fox News always seems to be the scapegoat for all the evils of the mainstream media, while CNN is looked at as the good guy. CNN is the equivalent of state media, and it is literally the mouthpiece of the New World Order. And in many cases, the voice of China. In many ways, CNN kowtows to the Communist Chinese Party. So in no way is CNN an innocent media institution. And in many ways, in the last few weeks, we've seen CNN race bait. We already saw them race bait with the whole Ferguson situation. So for those of you that have family members that are watching CNN, or for those of you that watch CNN for long hours, what the hell do you think you're doing? What are you subjecting yourself to? I mean, you know they're lying to you on a few levels. Why would you think that you're going to have the discernment to be able to pick out the truth when there's fear-based report after fear-based report coming at you? Especially if you're one of those individuals that's completely susceptible to mind control, that will actually believe that Muslims are after you, that ISIS is about to invade the United States. If you're of that mindset and you're watching CNN, and they're programming you with fears of Ebola, and they're programming you with other deceptions, or if you're watching MSNBC and people like Chris Matthews are telling you that if you criticize Obama's foreign policy, that you must hate black people. Any of you out there that are watching any of these global Big Five media outlets, you're putting your own consciousness at risk by exposing yourself to intentional mind control, such as this. Go ahead and roll it.
And potential Republican presidential contender Bobby Jindal. He's been in London today speaking out about Islamic extremism. Bobby Jindal spoke about claims that Muslim immigrants have created what he calls these so-called go zones across Europe. Places where Sharia law rules and non-Muslims aren't allowed. According to one online copy of the speech, the governor said this, and I'm quoting, "In the West, non-assimilationist Muslims establish enclaves and carry out as much of Sharia law as they can without regard for the laws of the democratic countries which provided them a new home. It is startling to think that any country would allow, even unofficially, for a so-called no-go zone." The governor, Bobby Jindal, is joining us now live from London. Governor, thanks very much for joining us. I don't know if you realize your remarks are creating a lot of criticism out here.
The guy on the right is from Southeast Asia. He is East Indian. So it's interesting to see them use a brown face, if you will,
all of us when you're describing
to be at the face of this hardcore hateful propaganda that you're seeing right now.
Look, I knew by speaking the truth we were going to make people upset. Even today in the Daily Mail, you had a local police chief admit that there are no-go zones here in London. Here's the bigger point. Radical Islamists hate our values. They threaten our way of life. They don't appreciate, they don't condone, they don't allow freedom of expression, self-determination. Anybody that thinks that you should be killed for drawing a cartoon, obviously, is a terrorist, is somebody that we need to hunt down, that we need to get rid of in our societies. The huge issue, the big issue is non-assimilation.
To the rhetoric that you're hearing over and over and over again, we have to hunt them down. Go back to the video.
Enclaves and continue to hold on to their own values. I think that's dangerous. I think it's dangerous in America. I think it's dangerous in Europe. It used to be normal to call America the great melting pot. Now, because of political correctness, some people think that it's cultural arrogance or it's colonial somehow to insist that people that want to come to America should be Americans, should want to be Americans, should share our commitment to the freedom of religious life, freedom of expression, the right to self-determination. So my point is we've got a huge challenge in those that don't want to assimilate, don't want to integrate. Quite frankly, we have a right as a country to say, if you want to come to America to be an American, to pursue the American dream, to enjoy freedom and opportunity, we welcome you. However, if you don't, we don't want you in our country.
But you're not saying there are no-go zones in the United States. What you're suggesting, there are these so-called no-go zones in the United Kingdom where you are right now.
Okay, I want to make a point. So he's talking about these no-go zones, and, supposedly he is in London. For all we know, that could be a green screen.
No, you're exactly right, Wolf. Look, again, you had a police
hearing a few more seconds of audio here.
There are absolutely neighborhoods. I'm not talking about entire cities, as others have tried to suggest. I'm saying there are neighborhoods where the police say they don't go as frequently. There are neighborhoods where women do not feel comfortable walking without veils. And you're right, no, we don't see that in America.
So he keeps repeating the
tolerate that
lie.
in America, but in America,
And so,
if
in a
we
way,
continue
CNN
allowing
is
folks
living
to
up
come in
to
without
the
insisting
motto, thank you
on
for playing that,
assimilation, on
of Fox
integration,
News.
This is what
You know, not we report, you decide, but we repeat the lie and you believe it. So CNN and Fox News are working with a very similar style of news reporting, putting out the false reality, and then it came out that there are no no-go zones. Politicians in London were like, WTF, what the frock? This is bullcrap. So Fox News comes out and apologizes and says, okay, we got it wrong. And CNN even has someone on that says, you know what, this is completely bogus. But they have that guy back on a couple days ago to say, regardless of these so-called allegations from police officers and politicians that there are no no-go zones in the UK, he went back on CNN just simply to repeat that propaganda. So that politician, that governor of Louisiana, is clearly working directly for the New World Order to earn himself a nice little position in the future in the post-2016 world, which likely will be Republican, as we constantly see this Democrat, Republican, back and forth, ping pong ball reality. Going to the next video, teen who tries to join ISIS gets 4 years in prison. The stories that we're seeing in this particular day and age are so absurd, they're difficult to even believe. Go ahead.
Started 6 with breaking news. New since World News. We're hearing from the lawyer of an Arvada teen sentenced to 4 years in prison. Shannon Conley was caught on her way to join ISIS. 7 News reporter Jennifer Kowaleski live tonight. And Jennifer, some interesting things said in that courtroom.
Eric, there were some very interesting things said in the courtroom today. Keep in mind, this was more than 3 hours. This is one of the longest sentencing hearings I've ever attended. The judge at one point calling Connolly a mess, saying, quote, that woman is in need of psychiatric help. We also heard from a very emotional Shannon Conley, who addressed the court for the first time. This is the first time we've really heard from her since these allegations arose. She basically said that she no longer believes in violent jihad. She also said, quote, I do not believe I am a threat to society, and I would appreciate an opportunity to prove it. At one point, she was even so emotional, she had to take a break before she could continue what she was saying. The prosecution went into this recommending 4 years, which the judge ended up agreeing with. The defense was asking for 1 year and a day. Judge Raymond Moore making clear this was not a serious offense, but an extremely serious one. He said what really hurt Connolly were public interest factors, as well as making sure this case serves as a deterrent for others. You may remember this Arvada teenager met a man online, fell in love with an admitted terrorist, and then agreed to fly overseas to Turkey to fight with ISIS in Syria.
Okay, so this stuff's getting really ridiculous.
Against the U.S.
And the more ridiculous the story, I guess for some people, the more believable it is, because people are being conditioned to believe the absurd. Whether we're looking at the official story of 9/11, the official story of the Christmas tree bomber here in Portland, you know, the official story is, some lone nut tried to commit a terror attack in Portland, when in reality it was an FBI operation the entire time. It's overwhelming how much corruption there is on the local level, and how much was involved there with the FBI in that case, just simply to get us in the JTTF. And so we're seeing a rise in these stories and a rise in propaganda targeting women as well. You know, you've heard this slogan before in the past, or saying, first they came for this group, first they came for that group, and I said nothing. Then they came for me, and there was no one to stand up for me or speak out against what was taking place because they already took everybody away. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. So this isn't just about targeting one country or targeting Islam. It's about targeting people that think for themselves. And we're seeing this focus all of a sudden on women. CNN coming out with these headlines. Why are Western women becoming radicalized? Is there any truth behind the allegations that this woman was actually going to join ISIS? And if those allegations are actually true, is there any mind control or other things taking place to influence people to type the most insane things onto Facebook or elsewhere on the web that could incriminate them to the point to where the prosecutors are asking for years in prison? And that's what we're seeing there in this case. But that's not the only case. Ohio man arrested for plot to attack U.S. Capitol. Video 11, go ahead and roll
Security
it.
surrounding the U.S. Capitol after a terror plot is stopped. One man is now in custody and the FBI is investigating. Welcome, everybody, to KOIN 6 News at 5 o'clock. I'm Ann State.
And I'm Jeff Gianola. And the latest word, the FBI has arrested a man, 21-year-old Christopher Lee Cornell in Cincinnati, Ohio. Our affiliate there says this is his yearbook photo. Agents moved in as Cornell walked out of a gun store. Managers at the store work with the FBI to make the bust. Investigators say Cornell purchased 2 semi-automatic rifles and 600 rounds of ammo. Once he touched the guns, the FBI moved in.
When he came out the door, he would have come out here. He was about halfway across here to where the cars are parked. By that time, the agents had come across the parking lot, and 2 agents were on top of him, 2 or 3.
And court documents show an FBI informant started supplying information about Cornell last year. Investigators say he pledged his allegiance to the terror group ISIS, but it's unclear if he had any contact with known members overseas.
Okay, so they have control over the web, and the government created the web to a certain degree, and it's a perfect track and trace technology, especially with Facebook and people directing their revolutionary leanings. We're winning onto Facebook, when in reality it's really just a CIA database. You're not going to have a revolution or evolve us to another level by putting all your energy into Facebook. But isn't it interesting that you keep hearing these stories about social media, ISIS recruiting, Facebook, social media to blame for the violent protests, Ferguson, social media, Facebook, CIA tracking, Facebook mind control database. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. So pay attention, pay very close attention. Meanwhile, society continues to show more and more evidence of mental illness. Not a lot of videos that we're going to show tonight on this topic, but a few. Going to the next video, that would be video number 12. Armed suspect forces woman into car, and this took place in Arlington, Texas. Now, as a lot of you know, they're better armed in Texas. Much better armed than in Oregon. There's probably more women that know how to shoot and are carrying a firearm in Texas, in Oregon, and especially Portland. There's a heavy anti-gun sentiment. And as Portland and as the country gets less safe, certain people that need a form of protection, and there's always value in knowing actually how to physically defend yourself, especially as a woman, more people are going to be looking at those options. Will those options be so easily available with the UN Arms Trade Treaty and other things? With all the shootings taking place, is getting a firearm going to be as easy in the future as it is today? So this is Texas. You know, she could have been armed, but this thug thought he would take a chance. And he stuffs this woman in the trunk of the car that he's carjacking. So I said I was going to talk a little bit about, you know, some of the risks that I see coming to Portland. And to be brief, it's a human trafficking epidemic. Once there's more criminals here and there's more of a cartel presence in the Portland area, if we have such an extreme recession or depression to where they're laying at cops at an alarming rate and the cops go back to revenue generating once the city isn't making as much money, because maybe you've noticed, for those of you that are longtime Portland residents, the cops here in town don't seem to be pulling people over as much as they used to 10 decades ago, or a decade ago, 10 years ago rather. I remember what it was like to drive through this city when I was 20. It's very different today. And I don't know a lot of people that have noticed that. I guess we get so used to seeing police and hearing stories about police brutality, we forget that Portland's fairly calm right now because there's a lot of money coming into Portland. And there are people making a killing that are in the have category, especially when it comes to real estate. Once Portland ceases to become super popular, you're going to see police officers going back to revenue generation, pulling people over left and right for expired tags or no insurance or a cracked windshield or a busted taillight. Once that extra money tapers off and we tap out in popularity and there's a bunch of people here and crime starts to rise and the job rates jobless rates start to go up, the available jobs start to go down, you're going to see major safety issues in the city as more criminals choose to call Portland home. And we're talking about really bad dudes that themselves are being driven out of some of these other areas down south. Don't forget that California is facing a 500-year high when it comes to the drought. They haven't seen anything like it for 500 years. So many social consequences will come about from this. Going to the next video. Walmart shopper tackles concealed weapons carrier charged with battery. That's also in the news.
The victim held his hands up and said, he started to scream, said he have a gun, he have a gun, he have a gun. And he said, I have a license, I have a license.
And then going on from that, other things taking place in the news. Video number 14.
Police tell us this woman is
accused of attempted child sex assault. Usually we hear about this with men. I'm seeing a rise in stories about
North Glen. She was booked into the Adams County Jail, and we just checked, and it appears she made bond.
Okay, so that was a fairly short report. We didn't get any details in that report, but I'm seeing a rise in psychotic female episodes. And many of you may also see a rise in women acting fairly batty, to be somewhat polite. And I don't know what the cause is, whether it's biological, whether it's chemical manipulation, electromagnetic warfare. We know how popular cell phones are with many women, and I believe that cell phones are the conduit for a lot of potential mind control that could be taking place. There's also a lot of evil. I know some people have a hard time with the concept of evil versus good, but I believe that, when you eat people, when you rape people, I kind of put that in the evil category. I never put that in good. So when I think evil, I think violating free will, I think hurting people. I think those things are evil. But that's just me. You may think different. I'm seeing a rise in evil in the way that people are treating each other, and it's affecting a lot of women on this planet. So we're seeing an increase in women killing their children or driving their children into a lake. We're seeing an increase in stories involving sexual assault, rape, women and their boyfriend having sex with, say, a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old. A lot of weird stories coming out of foster care. So I think it's important for people to understand that this is not just something that affects men. When we talk about sex crimes and pedophilia, we're seeing an increase, an uptick in this behavior, including bestiality, across the board. By the way, there's a mullah in Iran who's getting a lot of crap for a statement he made recently about American women being more interested in sleeping with dogs than men. I couldn't agree more. Have you hung around Laurelhurst Park? Women there are closer to their dogs than they are to actual men, and it's the society that we're in. There's a lot of distrust. There's a lot of resentment in this manufactured gender war. And there's not enough love in our city, and there's not enough love on our planet. And this is something that I also talked about on my YouTube channel. And for those that aren't already subscribed, you can look up my name, and there's a lot of content that I put on that channel throughout the week that doesn't make it to Access TV. One brief point I want to make is that as you see more good men opt out from society, as you see more men end up homeless, as you see more men go off grid, as you see more good men rejected by a lot of the worldly, materialistic women of today's age, as you see more of that happen, you're going to see something else. You're going to see that plummet of women's safety in cities like this as they continue to decay. And it is unfortunate, and it's already happening now. And I don't believe that the women of today's generation, some older ones do if they're above or older than 50, or older than 45. But most women today don't seem to see the social repercussions of so many good men leaving society and leaving the cities, leaving mainstream society, leaving the workplace. And the workplace, for the most part, tends to favor the male who's super competitive. Not all men, but some men. And some men make better middle managers for the corporation. And some men are better at dominating others. And so when it comes to work and management, certain types of personalities are promoted to the top. This is also one of the reasons why in my whole time looking for work, I've kept mentioning on Access TV, hey, does anyone know who's hiring? Is anyone hiring themselves? No comment, no email, nothing. And now it's my 9th month back in Portland. And I'm aware that my Access TV presence, I'm aware that some of the opinions that I've shared on Access TV may be working against me, but that's part of the discrimination that does go on in this world if you're a free thinker. People are threatened by it, and most of all, they're afraid of several things. What could happen to them if they were to help someone? Would they end up on the list? Would they end up surveilled? And the other main thing is, what would their peers think? What would their customers think? What would their friends think if they were to be associated with a certain person, such as Alex Ansary? So that's one of the things that I've gone through in Portland. There's a lot of different ways that the government actually doesn't have to go out and shut us down. Society will pick up the slack when it comes to pushing the good men into exile. So I want the women to contemplate, please, if you care about your own safety, if you care about your daughters and the next generation, think about what society is going to look like as the media gets more and more control, as we move one step deeper into this big brother society, as our world becomes even less safe, as our own country launches more wars. When in reality, our economy is getting worse and worse and worse. They keep telling you the economy is doing great. The economy, whether the economy is doing great or not, is not necessarily based on how many people are working or not. It's based on so much more. So these are things that people have to take into account when they look at their own lives and they look at their own future. There is cause and effect. And we are going to have to deal with the world that we're creating, just like what we're having to do right now. We're having to deal with all the crap that was left for us, what our ancestors left for us, and what our government, our misleaders, are steering us into. We're having to deal with that. The unconscious behavior of today taking place is going to impact the next generation. So as women start to see society get less and less safe, they also need to contemplate all the good men that have been pushed out of mainstream society because there was no place for them, because they did not conform, because they did not act like a good slave, and so many other factors. This is really a very important topic in relation to public safety, and I would encourage both the female and male audience members to contemplate what I'm discussing. Okay, going to the next video, I need to take a drink of water.
Kids get into some wacky trouble when they go off to school. This is a little more trouble than maybe you might have expected at NYU. Jaime Castano has now had charges brought against him because in October, in the dorm room in Lafayette in the Greenwich Village, he found a female sleeping, kind of passed out drunk, couldn't wake her up, and thought it might be funny to light her on fire and then start videotaping her reaction while she was trying to put herself out. Also singing while he was doing that. It was a big funny thing that he did, apparently, he thought. And she was not aware of what happened until the next day when she woke up and there were burn marks in her bed. On her skin, she had burns, and she didn't know how it happened. She didn't know, she just knew something happened, but didn't know how. Till she checked online.
So,
and
a very important story, and there's a lot of other videos that I also have lined up. In a little bit, we're going to go to video 21, which is called Sexist. But let me go ahead and talk about that video before it starts. So I hope you're understanding what I'm saying, that we're seeing a rise in violence in society. We're seeing a rise in women committing suicide and being violent, or at least stories about some of these things. Who knows, there could be other things going on like mind control or other forms of influence. I know that this is a new topic for some people, but the world of subliminal mind control is alive and well, especially in the digital realm on the box that you're watching now. CNN uses it, Fox News uses it, and I can clearly see how it's infected, not only affected, but infected the minds of so many people. We don't have a lot of time left, but this is a video that was put together by Paul Joseph Watson. I have a lot of comments to make, but we are short on time. There is this mass understanding and wake up that's taking place mostly with men that there's a huge imbalance between men and women. And it's infected our society in profound ways. And as I said earlier, there's going to be huge social ramifications for this later, including a massive decline in public safety for women as more men start going their own way. There's this whole movement that's kicked off in recent years. It's called MGTOW, or men going their own way. It's men opting out from a somewhat demasculating experience of kowtowing to feminism, and women that are stuck in this fake, counterfeit goddess worship me complex, which is very prevalent with today's urban woman. So this is a video by Paul Joseph Watson. Go ahead and roll it.
Why are more and more young men giving up on women and checking out of society? They're calling it the sexodus, an entire generation of boys abandoning female company, relinquishing relationships, and retreating into a virtual reality world of pornography, video games, lad culture, and chemical addictions. Anecdotally, the flip side of the equation also appears to be true. How often do you hear women who have resisted the brainwashing of radical feminism bemoaning the fact that they can no longer find real men? Men who are actually confident enough to know how to act around women.
So I'm going to make a few comments. There's complaints going on, where are the real men? But there isn't an acknowledgement about those men that are being pushed out of mainstream society that are not considered valuable anymore. This needs to be understood. We're going to go back and forth with this video.
A series of articles on the sexodus. Breitbart's Milo Yiannopoulos notes how an entire generation of young people are being left behind in the wreckage of the social engineering project known as third wave feminism. Yiannopoulos spoke to Jack Rivlin, editor of over 30 student newspapers, who told him of the increasingly troubling trend of young men on campus being completely clueless and scared when it comes to how to engage with women. What's to blame for this breakdown? The hysterical propaganda surrounding
the media is labeling
culture,
the man constantly as a potential rapist in so many different scenarios, exaggerating rape statistics. So this climate of fear has actually programmed men to actually not speak confidently to women out of fear that they will make the woman feel threatened. So if women are upset that men aren't approaching them, they also should understand that it's for a reason.
Verbal contract with each other before they can engage in any kind of sexual activity. The deadening of young boys' naturally rambunctious behaviour via ADH drugs such as Ritalin, as well as their educational abandonment, is also creating a generation of dysfunctional and reclusive adolescents, devoid of all self-esteem, miserable, and unable to relate to the opposite
and
sex.
society isn't really concerned with these men being healthy or being involved in healthy activities. They want them playing video games, mostly shoot-'em-up games, and when they're ready, sacrificing their blood to be an American sniper, to join the military and involve themselves in entrapping their own soul to the dark forces, the world of evil that seems to rule Earth politics. And it's unfortunate to see so many men
in Game of Thrones
joining
men know this,
the militaristic system.
Giant inconsistency makes the whole game look too much like hard work. Why bother trying to work out what a woman wants when you can play sports, masturbate, or just play video games from the comfort of your own bedroom?
Which is another important point, because more and more really young men and women, including women, are being exposed to hardcore pornography at younger and younger ages. This is alarming more and more researchers that are looking into the issue. And a lot of these younger people, allegedly, from what I've read, are discovering porn through pop-ups. So they could be on certain video game websites. They can be on certain websites where they're playing movies. And pop-ups will take place. Doesn't matter how young they are. There's no safeguards. There are no safeguards. And once they enter that world, some of them never come back.
Pickup artists like Julian Blanc, in a desperate last-ditch effort to reclaim their confidence around women. Traditionally male characteristics, qualities and traits have also been ridiculed by third-wave feminism and contemporary culture. There are virtually no true positive male role models left at all.
And bringing the audio down again, one more comment about porn. Feminists will speak against it and for it, is what's interesting. So you can be a man saying, you know what, I'm against the pornography industry and I don't think that prostitution is healthy, and you may come across a self-described feminist that says, oh no, that's freedom of speech. We're liberated now. And it's not really liberating to see society go in a pornographic direction and for adult humans to become asexual to the point where they're no longer actually sexually active with the opposite sex. Instead, they're in a virtual reality world, as Paul is discussing.
Quote, I'm an athlete. My parents have a lot of money. I have plenty of friends and a good social life. I don't hang out with women anymore, wrote 28-year-old Francis. Occasionally I'll have one-night stands, but mostly I fill my time with other things. I got accused of molesting a girl at college, and since then I've just thought, whatever, I'll play sports instead.
I'm actually a Portland native. I only know one genuinely nice Portland woman. A lot of them in the city are really catty, and thank you for playing this video. We'll keep playing the visuals, however. We'll keep playing the visuals. This is a really important video. People should check it out for themselves. It's called The Sexodus. But I really want to share this with the Portland community because Portland's facing a lot of these issues. There's a lot of young men here. Let's just kill the audio. There's a lot of young men here. There's a lot of young women here. More women, I would say, than probably men. But a lot of them have come from places where there's a lot more tension. A lot of them have been infected with this competition programming. And it doesn't matter where I go in the city. I see unhappy female after unhappy female after unhappy female, and it makes me feel sad inside that I can't say anything or do anything to turn their frown into a smile. Because I am a male who is considered a threat if they don't know me. It doesn't matter how long I've been on Access TV. Most of the people that watch Access TV are over 40 or 50, and I also made some comments to Bill earlier that I think that Access TV viewership, every time I talk, I lose my voice. Access TV viewership seems to have declined at least 25% since 2011 because there's zero emails or community feedback on this particular show, which is why I'm going to be moving in a couple of months. Also to get away from the women of this particular region and go somewhere like Colorado where there's less people. Because for men like me that want to keep moving forward, when you're surrounded by sickness, when you're surrounded by resentment, it's not a healthy atmosphere. And so Portland seems to be a melting pot, not so much racially, but of people with a lot of suffering. It's a melting pot of suffering. There's a lot of pornography here in the city. There's a lot of porno stores. I'm sure you've heard of Fantasy for Adults. I'm sure you've heard that in Portland, there's more porno stores here per capita and strip clubs than in other major cities. But do people look really comfortable in the streets as they interact with the opposite sex? No. So this is what I've learned from being from Portland and being a Portlander, even if there's some Portlanders that completely disagree with me. Being in a culture where we're surrounded by all this stuff does not necessarily make it easier for us to communicate. There are various factors that I think lead to women in this region of Portland being super full of anxiety, super full of fear. I think it has to do with our past and the way that women were treated historically when Portland was created, where they were imported into the city to be a part of the city's first industry, which was the brothel industry or the whorehouse industry. It's in the textbooks, or at least there has been books written about it, even though they may not teach it to children today. So, in short, I feel like Portland is plagued, and the women are plagued, and the men are plagued with deep systemic spiritual sickness related issues in this city of my birth. And despite the fact that I've talked about a lot of socially conscious issues over the last 10 years, what I found is that women only resent it. People in Portland, for the most part, want to hear that this is a super progressive, wonderful place. And if you speak out against those things, you are the devil. End of story, end of debate. If you're not into the mainstream new age, oh, we're ascended, we're goddesses, worship me, worship the ground I walk on, play the game, have a good sense of humor, entertain me? No, no. Until women start evolving themselves and looking at some of these issues, you know, you can look on YouTube and find out that most of the videos that younger women are putting on YouTube today are videos of them twerking their ass. It has nothing to do with socially conscious issues. Until women actually start stepping up, I'm telling you folks, the world's going to end up in a new dark ages. And there's a lot of men and women like me that have this information that don't want to see our world end up in that type of scenario. Next week, we'll continue talking about these issues and many, many more. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/AlexAnsary. Until next week, I'm Alex Ansary reminding you that the path to the ultimate place of truth and power still lies within. Take care, stay safe, and good night.